A little bit more about this stop in Windsor, Virginia, of a black second lieutenant, I believe, Army second lieutenant. Um, I don't watch Morning Joe often. Just get snippets of. I don't watch a lot of MSNBC. I don't watch a lot of Western media. Period. Which don't doesn't interest me. Um, but let's talk about this. One thing that hit me about that case, I grew up with older people. My grandparents. My mom died when I was 13. But I was already growing up around them for the most part. And so I kind of remember hearing stories and, learning the way it was for black men during that era, World War II, of having to be careful when you're on liberty and having to be careful when you're out and about and having to be careful in southern states. And now, I learned later on that even after black people came home from the war, they were lynched in their uniforms. That shit didn't mean nothing. All this American flag shit came later. They didn't give a damn. You still a nigger. You still a nigga. You think because you got a flag on your uniform that means something? You got some pieces of metal in uniform, some ribbons, that will mean something? Didn't mean shit. And they had a green book back then. As a African American, when you're traveling, what areas you go to and what areas you better not be caught out in. And that's what I thought of when I thought about Windsor. I don't know anything about that town. I don't care anything about that town. But I just thought about how he kept talking about how I'm a veteran. I fought for your freedoms. That stuff means nothing. And they talked about how you drove a mile and a half. Well, that doesn't mean anything either, because if I'm telling you, I'm 8-year-old can figure this. 8-year-old, there's kids I know that could break this down, because in them small towns, in places like that in Virginia, I've been out in Petersburg. I know what it is. If it's late at night, there may not be any open restaurants, open businesses. So guess what? There may not be any other well lit places. So that logic that the cop gave is bullshit. Total bullshit. That's something that if you were in Charlotte, yeah, okay, let's put a gas station and stuff, but not in small towns. And Windsor's a small town. Yeah, he kept talking about how I'm gonna be deployed and they sprayed him to get him out the car and all that. And I understand the officer that sprayed him, Gutierrez, I think Gutierrez, said he would not charge the lieutenant because that would affect his career. And it bothered me because that shouldn't matter. And I thought about the way things were back in the day. That's kind of how it was. That they might pull you over and tell, nigga, we don't want you out here. Or what the fuck you doing here, boy? And, once they know you're military, they may be like, well, we did this, but you better not say nothing because we'll just lie and we'll ruin your career. And I thought about how this is another example of body cameras kind of unpeeling things that as a black man, I already knew. We already know this. We already know about these type of things, type of interactions. We already know they exist. We already know that these things happen all the time. Nothing abnormal about them, and that was my take from that. 20, 30 years ago, they could have done. They could have put him out the car, put the gun in his face. They could have been like, "What the fuck you doing here, boy?" They could have cussed him, and then at the end of it, say he ain't gonna say nothing. He'll just learn that lesson and he'll shut up about it. It's kind of like a pedophile or something. Saying that if you say anything, or rapist, so you gonna say anything, then people will say you're weak because you let this person do this to you, and not that this person should be punished for harming you, for doing something untoward to you, non-consensually doing something to you. So this was. And the fact that his response was that well, I didn't want to hurt his career. What? That shouldn't matter. I mean, I don't know, that reading that bothered me more than the actions undertaken during the stop themselves that the police and the military are a protected class, and that, no, this black man probably has mental problems. That's one of the things why I'm glad I didn't join the service. I mean, I know there's people I know that did and did well with it, but you come back with mental problems. A lot of those guys come back self-medicating, drinking, doing things like that. Maladaptive coping mechanisms is what they call it. But it's just, drinking and things. And you run into these cops out in the middle of Bumsfuckville, and you don't move fast enough for them, it's going to be your ass. They don't care. They don't give a fuck. You can fuck around here if you want to. You'll learn a quick, fast lesson, boy. I already knew stuff like that. That's the way it was. I mean, the fact they hopped out with the guns. What he did, you could say it was he shouldn't have done. He should have got the car and everything. But just every step along the way was just very aggressive. It was every step was escalatory in nature. I have to say, I'm not sure I'd reach back in my car either for the seatbelt if they got guns on me. I have to be honest with you. And when you got a gun in your face, if you never had it happen, you can make the wrong decision out of fear. People don't realize that when you scare somebody to that point, to where you're doing things like that, they can make a mistake out of fear. I understand that. That's why you don't do that. But that's American law enforcement. I mean, I thought about the Judge Dredd. I'm not sure if you guys know about it. Judge Dredd, it's just this armored up cop in the future. He's got a gun that he can voice activate. This is way before Bluetooth. Voice activated. He can choose a flare, armor piercing, machine gun, less lethal stuff. 100 things out of his gun. And in the fiction, there's a they can put you in there for, I think a guy got put in there for like 30 years or 10 years for parking wrong because he was on parole from prison. I mean, it's just, I thought it was interesting reading about that because it was a British man that came up with it. And it was a British man's view of American law enforcement. And this was back in the day. And when I saw that video, that's what came to my mind was Judge Dredd. You didn't move fast enough for me. I am the law. And, I just hyper aggressive. And this is the nature of American law enforcement. It's not a game. It's not a joke. And then the cop talked about it's us against you against us. And think about it from my point of view. And I know what that is. Cops do that when they do something and they go too far. They know, sometimes you meet a cop and they'll know they went too far. They know it. And so they'll start like, I heard one say, cops die every day and we must, all this other, it's just other fucking horseshit bullshit they put in their head at Academy of, they tell you there's certain things they say you resist, stop resisting, they keep beating you. They say certain things to justify what they do. They're taught that. There's stuff you pick up over time. That's all horseshit. I mean, I talked earlier about a friend of mine that hit a deer in his company worked for, tried to fire him. And he wasn't cited for the incident or nothing. They said he was falling asleep. No proof of it. So if a cop's out here crying about losing his job over nothing, I don't feel bad for you. I don't feel bad for you at all. And I don't think that should make you not do your job because you're people. I mean, my company's got cameras on me. I mean, you got cameras on the mirrors. I mean, I don't feel bad for you, officer. I don't. I know things can happen rapidly, and that's sad, but you should be mad about society and the way society's been going, not mad about law enforcement being touched by this now. This technocracy that's taking place. That's what you should be upset about. But I just going back to it, I thought about black men in the South, certain areas you didn't go into, certain areas, and I think my uncle or somebody said they were like, oh, I work for the government, that don't mean nothing to them. That don't mean nothing to them people. I work for the government. It don't mean nothing. I think they kind of get off on that too, to a certain extent, that I can get in. I don't know. Thanks for listening.